I wanted to do a video on this. This is interesting, and yeah, so let's start.
The pressure is getting worse.
First of all, before I even get into this video, let me make it clear that man that she is shacking up with is either African or Caribbean. I know for a fact because she would not have used this sound if she is with a black American man. Now, it's time to actually get into this video. Now, before I get to speaking on this, let me make it clear that I'm going to be specifically talking about white and black interracial relationships, right? So, I'm going to specifically speak on black people. Now, I'm sure all of this is probably true for white people in interracial relationships with anybody, but like I said, I'm going to specify black people because, I'm black, that's what pertains to me, and honestly, I don't give a fuck about y'all. The same way non-black people don't give a fuck about black people, I really don't care about y'all or whatever situations y'all got going on. Let me make that clear, okay? So, I have told you all before that white people don't actually like black people or love us or anything like that. They get into these interracial relationships for two reasons: because they fetishize us and they view us as hypersexual, and because they want those mixed exotic kids. That's pretty much it. They don't like you, they don't love you, they don't care about you, none of that. That's it. Let me tell y'all something. I used to watch porn, right? And when you go to the comments under the videos, and now let me be clear. So I would always watch ebony porn because I'm not attracted to white people. I don't want to see no chicken cutlet coochie or no pink penis. No, thank you, right? So
I don't get why that would have to do with anything, though. But let's continue.
I always watch the ebony porn, okay? And when you go to the comments under the black videos, and I'm going to be specific, I'd be under the black American videos, them African videos, fucking each other outside in the jungle and shit, I wasn't watching that shit, no. When you go under the black American videos, and probably the same for the African videos too, you will see countless comments from white people like, I love that nigger dick. Like, what the hell, right? Like, it's crazy because in one breath they're attracted to us. Clearly, if you watching this video and you commenting how much you love whatever, but they still hate us. Like a white person can be attracted to.
Yeah, I thought that this was interesting because she acted like that term was supposed to be a term, I guess, of insult towards black men. The thing is, there's a lot of black men who actually like that term. Specifically, since you're talking about in the spectrum of the sex industry, I guess you could say. This is porn, so it's one form of, that type of industry. They may have picked up that word or term by a black man who preferred them calling them that. You see, I find that I think some people, like you per se, you're a black woman, so you probably have never really had any relations with black men in the perspective as a white woman, basically. And you haven't had any relations with anyone as a white woman, with a white man either, for that matter. You don't know that perspective, one. So it's kind of like, you wouldn't know that term may not be specifically offensive to everyone. There are plenty of black men who actually ask their partners to call them that. And that's not even all that bad to me. I mean, if someone says they want their partner to reference their, parts in that regard, it's not that bad considering black people call each other the N-word all the time. So that's not really all that big of a thing. Like, actual degrading situations. Usually this doesn't happen among partners because they don't want, but sometimes it does. Many people will talk about the fact that many black men will pay people lots of money to literally degrade them, for being black and so forth. That happens as well. But that's not even that, saying the term supposed, dick or whatever. that is not specifically, I don't think, a negative term. I think it's just more so that's a politically incorrect term to use. I mean, some people are okay with using it though, you know. But I'm just pointing that out.
You personally, on an individual level, and still hate you too. That's the point I'm making. White people can 100% easily be attracted to you and still hate you. And that's just not something like general or anything like that. Like I said, that applies to their individual personal relationships, right? They can date you, marry you, have a kid with you, etc., and still fucking hate you. They can easily do that. I promise you so. And that's what you see in 99% of these interracial relationships. These white people hate you, bro. They can't stand you. This girl literally posted a video saying she only got with you so she could have a mixed kid, and now she's like, ugh, now I have to learn how to do them nigger baboon naps. You know what I'm saying?
To me, I don't get that from the video you showed earlier. To me, I see it as, well, one, many of the time from my perspective, I've seen a lot of people who were the parent of a child who was biracial and so forth, and they never really perceived their children as light-skinned. Maybe she's Hispanic, because Hispanics will tend to consider their children light-skinned with black people at times, but you don't see that with white people that much. Many of the time, like biracials who are raised with their white side will actually identify more as dark-skinned. And they don't have to be that dark. They could be like, for example, people like Halle Berry's color, for example, are definitely considered dark to white people and to a lot of other people of non-white ancestry as well that aren't black. So they're not really thinking of light skin in those situations because they consider that skin dark. And you have to kind of think, who's really thinking about having light skin? Kids, if they're with a dark-skinned black person. If you really want to have light-skinned kids by the standards of Hispanic people's standards or white people's standards, they wouldn't be with black people. They would be with white people or Hispanic people or whoever has lighter skin, right? They have genes for lighter skin. You guys see things from a perspective as a dark-skinned person. You have to remember, not everyone is stuck with dark-skinned genes. That's you. A white person is not stuck with dark-skinned black genes. If they don't want to have dark-skinned children, they just choose not to have children with you. And you have to understand that the children they have with black people, they don't consider light-skinned. I have seen myself many times where white women, and I think white men even, would have children that were biracial, and then they would be flexing, basically, trying to prove and show how black their kids are in comparison. They would be saying, showing how their kids are darker than me, or they're my color, so they're as black, and, you can't deny their blackness and all this stuff, basically. I never would, because I wasn't raised from a family that really denies biracials' blackness. We just kind of see them as black in my family. And it makes sense because if you really think of it, my own cousins look a lot more mixed than a lot of biracials in the first place. So, that's why I was raised that way. But, yeah, I don't think any white person or Hispanic person is out here trying to have light-skinned kids with a black person. They would just do it with their own race because, they got light-skinned genes end of the day, much more than any dark-skinned black person does. They would actually be trying to have dark-skinned children in order to be with a darker-skinned black person. And this goes for everyone who isn't dark, by the way, not just white and Hispanic people, but also black people who are light-skinned, and mixed people, for that matter. If we want to have light-skinned kids and stuff, we're not going to have them with dark-skinned black person, because it's stupid, because, you're literally lessening your chances of having a child with a dark-skinned person and having a child that's light-skinned. So continue.
And like they can't stand you, bro. And this is the wild thing though. A lot of you niggas can't stand yourselves because how do you even sit around in a situation like that? Like, how do you even sign up for something like that and knowingly stay a part of it? Like, clearly you don't like yourself either because no person with any self-respect would even be involved in that. Let me tell you something. More than a year ago, maybe like closer to 2 years ago, I made a video about this investigation I did, okay? And if I can remember the title of it, I will put it up here, right? But I went on like this like, sex website, right? And I went under the black toys specifically, okay? So like, okay, and this is, well, y'all grown, y'all will be all right. Sex toys have different colors. So some of them are like, like they're not realistic, they might be like purple or pink or something. Some of them are realistic and they'll be like white or they'll be black, right? So I went under the realistic black toys specifically, right? The ones that are like made to look like a real black dick, basically, right? And the comments from white people were like very alarming. I'm not even joking. Like, I swear to God, I got a comment from a white guy. Well, not I got, but I saw a comment from a white guy like, oh yeah, I have a fantasy of my wife having sex with a black man. Like, I love this toy. Like, what? Like, what? You are married to a white woman. This is a K relationship, 2K folk. And you talking about you have fantasies of her having sex with a black man? Like, what type of shit is that? Like, let me put myself in this man's shoes. I always try to put myself in people's shoes so I can understand better. Say I'm married to a black guy. Why would I be sitting around talking about I have fantasies of my husband fucking anybody, but specifically a white woman? Like, first of all, it's weird for you to have fantasies of your spouse having sex with anybody but yourself, period. Like, that's odd to begin with. But then you specifically say a black man. Like what type of weird shit is that, right? But that really goes into how sick.
That's the thing, though. A lot of, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You are not familiar with these. I work in phone sex operating, work, actually on call right now. So if I get a call, I get a call. Maybe I'll tell you about it. But, major thing that I notice in the type of, interaction you get, the fantasies that you get, is specifically when it comes to race, black men who want to be, degraded, like I said, who is usually not in the whole nigger dick thing. Like, they might say things like that, but like if they're really getting into it, it's way more than that. It's more like, slavery and all that stuff, and yeah, being dominated and things like that. But then on the other spectrum of it is there's a lot of white men who have the big black cock fantasy, basically. That's what they have. And they have it usually in regard for their girlfriends or their wives, and so their fantasy is to basically have a black man basically dominate their woman, basically, who's white, and basically fuck her the way that he can't, basically, because usually he's more of an inferior, smaller, insignificant type of white man. He's not usually one with a bigger penis. It's usually one with a very small penis, and he associates his insignificant inadequacy with his white race, basically, and he associates black men being endowed with their race. So his idea is basically to have his woman dominated because he can't, basically, in the way he wants her to be dominated. And then on top of it, it's also a sense of dominating himself as well. See, some people who are cucks, as they like to call it, some cucks, people like to say cucks are submissive. I do not think cucks are submissive. I think cucks are more dominant. But they're dominant in their heads rather than in action. Like, they want to see, and they want type of domination to be done that they can't do themselves, but they are of the same mindset. I think of it this way because personally to me, in a realistic sense, I could never be obviously with a cuck. Even on the sense of boundaries of obviously, I mean, a lot of people don't want to cheat and all that stuff. Just on the idea of the actions of it, though, I'm saying. Like, I am a dominant girl, sexually. So I could never really be that bratty to actually be submissive to another man like that. It wouldn't really work for me because, you know, if you're dominant, then you're not really submissive to anybody, right? So it's kind of like it's just not going to work. End of story. So that's what I'm just saying here. But yeah, I think you got that kind of confused. I think you're thinking that that means that they're racist, I think. I don't really think that's the sense of being racist. I think, if anything, it's a low self-esteem issue. Like, the person is associating being a white man with being inadequate. So it doesn't have to do with him being racist to black men, I don't think. I think he's just got a complex in his head that's obviously not going to benefit him in the long run. But continue.
And twisted white people are. Like, I kid you not, they have a long history of sexualizing black people. I'm not even joking, right? So in the USA, there's this term mandingo, right? And it's this term white people use to say, like, oh, a black guy with a big dick, like, oh, I want a mandingo, right? Now, to be fair, I've never heard this word in real life because I do my best to speak to white people as little as possible, okay? So I've never heard this word in real life because I don't be around their asses. But
well, I've heard of mandingo, yeah, and the only time I've ever really heard it was in a rap song, particularly with a black woman singing about it. That's just my personal experience. I was just being honest.
I remember I was reading some book, right? And one of the characters was a white guy. He was like in the closet. This was a long time ago. I had to have been like in like 9th grade, but I will never forget this shit because it was like, what the fuck, right? So he was a gay guy, but he was in the closet. Nobody knew he was gay. And somebody went through his bag looking for something. Like, I don't know what they were looking for. Maybe they're like, oh, I'm looking for the history textbook so I can do the work. He said I could borrow his textbook. Whatever, right? Somebody went through this white guy's bag looking for whatever. And he had some DVDs in there called Mandingo something. I don't know. I don't even know what fucking book this was, but I remember that shit, right? And, you know, this is a term that I hear around, like on the internet and different stuff. But like I said, I never really hear it in real life because I don't talk to them motherfuckers in real life. I do my best to stay away from them, right? So one day I looked this shit up because I'm like, where the hell did this term come from? Like, what is going on? And apparently that is a mispronunciation of the Mandinka tribe in Africa. Now, you know, I'm not African. I don't know shit about no Ofufu tribe, whatever. So, of course, you know, it didn't click in my mind when I first heard this. Oh, I bet that is the Mandinka tribe. Like, so I looked this shit up and I'm like, so you telling me, because I think the Mandinka tribe is West Africa. You telling me that the moment white people got off them fucking ships and started, you know, buying and abducting niggas, they started talking about Mandingos? You telling me that as soon as they laid eyes on us, they started sexualizing us? You gotta be fucking kidding me, right? Like, that shit is insane. Like, this is how far back their sexualization of black.
That's Mandingo. That the tribe is Mandinka. I'm pretty sure it didn't come from that term. I think people may have used the term, just like, for example, I don't think the name Niger was made for that, you know, slur. But people use the term to use it as a slur against black people. Same thing with Mandinka. It's like the word started off being a tribe or a country, and then eventually it becomes a slur. Continue.
Black people goes, and it's particularly like flabbergasted when you see African men who are chasing after white women. Now, it's bad enough when it's a black American man or a Caribbean man, but when it's a fucking African, like, it's like, nigga, are you fucking serious, bro? But I'm not even joking. African men are some of the most self-hating. Because this is my thing. I'm black American, and of course, I don't know what the hell the Mandinka tribe is or anything like that, right? And I'm sure the same is true of Caribbeans, right? We ain't walking around talking about no damn Ududu tribe, none of that shit, right? But Africans, being African, they have a much like deeper understanding of, well, they should have a much deeper understanding of the racist history of white people. I would assume they got some motherfuckers.
You have to understand, though, Africans played a big part in slavery and were the culprits of slavery more than any other race of people. I mean, you guys always are trying to blame white people. But the thing is with white people is many fought against it, many had no part in it, you know, and many were the descendants of slaves themselves. So, I mean, the main ones who are the culprits in this present day are honestly Africans, because they're purely the descendants of the people who actually victimized the slaves of West Africa. And you can see even today that many Africans are unapologetic that that's what their ancestors did. In fact, almost proud. But continue.
And some oral traditions going down the motherfucking tribe, the village, whatever. Oh yeah, those pale faces came and did this, that. Something, you know what I'm saying? Y'all should have an even deeper understanding of how sick and twisted white people are. But y'all be the ones chasing after white people the fucking most. That should just be like mind-boggling to me, because like I said, it's bad enough when it's a black American or a Caribbean doing it, but it's like, okay, to be fair, they might not know the nitty-gritty. How the fuck are Africans out here this fucking down bad? Like, white people took your fucking countries and you still chasing after them, bro? Like, what? I don't get how in one breath Africans will talk about how they continent look like a doo-doo bowl, literally a pile full of doo-doo. And they'll talk about how that's because of white people stealing all their resources and destabilizing their countries and this, that, to this day. Not like, oh, they stopped back in the day and we still trying to recover. No, to this day, right? But then in the next breath, they will chase after white people and do their best to have white kids. Like, that does not make any sense to me, bro. It doesn't. But honestly, let me apply the same thing to black Americans, because in one breath, black Americans be talking about, oh, fuck the police, so-and-so, yada, yada, yada. Then they will chase after a white bitch whose brother is on the police, whose father's on the police, you know, whatever.
I don't think the police are really the enemy for black people, especially since we have so much black on black crime. I mean, what saves black lives is actually, law enforcement. So, I mean, like, many black men are the victims of black on black crime. They are. Like, they're more victimized than any other people, more than black women, black children, and so forth. So, I mean, law enforcement is definitely needed for the victims of these crimes. I don't understand why people always want to focus on the perpetrators when the victims of these crimes are usually black people. So, I mean, like, we should be more concerned about the innocent black people who aren't hurting anyone and actually need law enforcement to help them. So you can't really say fuck the police or anything like that. There's plenty of black people who don't have that mentality and understand the benefits of law enforcement for black people. Anyway, continue.
Right, the same way Africans will chase after the same white people who's colonizing their countries. Like, this shit makes no sense to me, yo. Y'all are your own worst enemies, for real. And let me say one last thing. I don't like the fact that white people have recently begun fixing their gums to be focusing on skin color. Now, I specify gums because, they ain't got no lips, so come on now, right? But I don't like how they've been talking about, oh, light skins or dark skins or whatever. Because, like, what? Because, first of all, let's be honest. The reason most of these light skins exist is because white people raped black people for centuries and centuries and centuries.
That is not true at all. There's such people as the Igbo people, and many of them are light-skinned and 100% sub-Saharan African ancestry. So, yeah, it's not because of that. Then there's the whole thing about, there's plenty of Africans who were not raped or had hardship during slavery. For example, my family has very, very little European ancestry in the family, and my mother's family have quite a few light-skinned people in the family, brown-skinned people. Most of my family is lighter than you, particularly. Your color, you look actually lighter, but I don't really know. You always say you're wearing a filter. I don't even know. But from what you've said your color was, I think, yeah, most of my family would be lighter than you. And they don't have a lot of European. They have less European than you. You have 15% European. Yeah, much of my family doesn't even have 10% European. More like 7 or 8% European, maybe. And a major reason for that is not because of the Igbo tribe, but I know people always think Africa is one race over there, but it really isn't. The Sahara itself ends in northern Nigeria, so it goes way deep into Africa. And a lot of the populations in the Sahara are mixed, honestly. Like, you have the Tubu, you have the Sudanese, North Sudanese people, you have the Tuareg, you have the Fula, and a lot of black Americans are descendants of Fula and Tuareg people, which are mixed race people, and some would say have a predominant, Berber heritage as far as the Tuaregs go. Usually, though, the ancestry having to do with the Tuareg have to do with mixing with Tuareg and maybe another population of sub-Saharan African ancestry. But, so there are populations in Africa who are mixed starting off, who are not fully sub-Saharan African, and it's not because of slave rape in America, because it's not to do with any European ancestry, more so to do with the Berber people of North Africa. But I just wanted to point that out there.
Now, of course, some light skins are being made, consensually, now that self-hating nigga coons are chasing after white bitches, but the reason that this whole light versus...
No, not at all. Dark skin is not the original phenotype, though. Like I said, there are plenty of Igbo people who are light-skinned, very light-skinned, and, they are phenotypically, going to not be dark at all. They're racially black. So you can't say it's got to do with mixed race. You're just saying that you want it to because you want to have some claim over something to feel better about being dark-skinned, as if you need a comeback for being dark-skinned, and you don't, sweetie.
Dark thing started on the plantations. It all started on the plantations when white people would rape dark skins and create light skins and put the light skins in the house and treat them better due to their proximity to whiteness. So all of this whole...
Not true, though. Honestly, if you do know with the slave trade that a major part of the slave trade had to do with the population of Igbo Africans from Nigeria who are light-skinned already. So if you're saying that some white slave owners preferred their Igbo slaves over other types of slaves, that wouldn't have to do with slave rape or racial mixing. It would just have to do with, I guess, they preferred the Igbo over other people. I doubt it, though, because I remember I was looking at the history of this, and they were saying that light-skinned and dark-skinned black people worked out in the fields and worked in the homes. It was not split like that. But that's just more so a myth than anything. But anyway, continue.
Color boundary in the black community, all of this colorism came from white people, and now you sitting around talking about light skins versus dark skins? Like, absolutely not.
So we went for coffee. That was our first date.
And the thing is, like I said in ending this, two things. One, no person who is white perceives many light-skinned black people as actually even light-skinned. For the most part, they perceive them as dark-skinned. For example, Halle Berry would be considered darker-skinned compared to most white people. So you saying that they're doing some kind of thing, pitting you against light-skinned people, that's delusional, honestly, in my opinion. I don't mean to attack you. I mean, that thought process would be delusional, you know. Also, one other thing I think about this whole situation, I do think that it's kind of silly to think that, white people would be trying to have kids with black people in order to have light-skinned kids when they just have light teens already. I mean, like, if they wanted to have white kids, they don't need black people to do that. It's not rocket science to understand that either. So, I mean, like, trying to make this into a color thing with white people just makes no sense. It's like you don't realize where they're coming from. They're not coming from the perspective of being a dark-skinned black person. They're coming from a perspective of being a white person. And I understand you have to see things through your eyes as a dark-skinned person, but everyone else who's not dark-skinned does not see their perspective and their see things through your eyes. It's only you who's seeing things through that perspective, and you have every right to see yourself and see things through the perspective of a dark-skinned woman, but understand not everyone else is going to see things through the perspective of as a dark-skinned person, But I did like this video, honestly, very interesting. Like I said, on the whole thing of phone sex operating and things of that nature, I hear a lot about these type of fantasies, about, white men having fantasies over big black cock, BBC, basically, fantasies. These are BBC cucks, basically. And many of the time, they assert their inferiority and inadequacy with their race, which is really, interesting, to an extent. I don't think that per se is anything from a racist manner. I don't. I think it's more so from a manner of feeling not good enough, really. And, the other side of it, I think, like I said, with the part where you were saying the person was using the term on nigger tech, I kind of feel like that, like I said, is a term that a lot of black men use, and they use that because they, I guess, are comfortable with it, so they may not see it as a bad thing to use that term. They're not in a work setting, they're in a, sex industry setting, and so that's kind of like an acceptable term. Now, the degrading part, I always thought it was really interesting that black men will literally pay, white women and women that they don't perceive as black to degrade them in a lot of different ways, calling them, N-word, a slave boy, basically, telling them how they're going to be dominated by their white masters, yes, sexually even. So, I mean, there's plenty of stuff like that, that is interesting. And I think that's more outlandish, but I don't think that really comes from white women, and I don't think it's particularly got anything to do with white men, what I just described. Lastly, that pertains to black men who will literally go out of their way and pay people to degrade them sexually for their race, to degrade them racially, in any way possible. Like, some of them love to be called the name S-skins, shit-skins, basically, and things like that. Like, just different, really bad terms, and it's just weird. I had a conversation like this, a couple weeks ago with somebody. It was weird, but it wasn't a situation where I was well, it doesn't matter who I was having the conversation with, but I was like, who really does pay to be degraded like that racially? You know, how do you get off? How does the N-word turn someone on? You know, that kind of just seems so weird that someone could get hard because they're being called the N-word. You know, that is an odd situation, you know. And there are black men who do get hard, and they get so hard that they literally will pay you to call them that, you know. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. I don't think it's specifically racism that's being expressed here. It's more so what black men have put forward in those situations. And, you know, in the sense of being inadequate for the white man with the big black cock fantasies, you know. A couple with being bisexual, of course, you know. But I don't think it's just being bisexual, because people who are bisexual, you know, they have all sorts of different types of fantasies when it comes to men, and that doesn't just pertain to black men. It would pertain to kind of like all men. To me, the whole fixation of the big black cock kind of implies a sense of inadequacy on the white man, you know. So I wouldn't say that's racism, at least not against black men. It's more so racism, I guess, against white men. The assumption that a white man is small, which isn't true. I can tell you from personal experience, they're not small. It's just that some white men who are small associate it with their race. Anyway, that's all I have to say in this video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe. Comment down below and have a great day. Bye.